This movie is 9 years old now, coming this year, so it's time to give this a chance. I think it deserves to be talked about. What's up everyone, it's Epictastic Joshua. Welcome back to the channel. I talk movies, TV, music, and anime on a few occasions with the last two. But this is going to be my review in collaboration with Jacob Martin from over his channel. He doesn't do a lot of reviews as such because of the life and such. But he was nice enough to collaborate with me on the movie we're going to be talking about. And the movie we're going to be talking about is the 2015 live-action remake from Disney, romantic fantasy, Cinderella. This is based on the 1950s animated film and based on Charles Perrault's 1697 fairy tale. And this is directed by Cate Blanchett. This is written by Chris Weiss. This stars Lily James, Cate Blanchett, Richard Madden, Stellan Skarsgård, Holiday Granger, Sophie McShera, Derek Jacobi, and Helena Bonham Carter. The premise of Cinderella is pretty much the same as the original film. They just add some things differently to make this more of its own. So pretty much her father unexpectedly dies, and you have the young Ella finds herself at the mercy of her cruel stepmother and her stepsisters, who reduce her to nothing but a maid. Despite the circumstances, she refuses to give in to despair, and she tries to be hopeful and kind. So an invitation to a palace ball by the prince named Kit gives Ella hope that she might reunite with him that she met in the woods. But her stepmother prevents her from going, and the help arrives of a fairy godmother who has a magical touch for ordinary beings. That's pretty much the plot. As I said, they give some things differently. They give her more of a backstory. They give the prince a name, give him some backstory, and pretty much such. So before I go into my side of the review, I want to give Jacob's side of things. Take it away, Jacob.
I have to see her again.
Are you looking for this?
What's going on, Josh and all of his viewers? Thank you, Josh, for having me on your channel. I think this is the first time that I've been on your channel. I know you've been on my channel several times, so it's cool to be on your channel if this is the first time. You've asked me, Josh, to review Cinderella. This is the 2015 iteration of the classic fairy tale. Of course, Disney is the one who has constantly adapted this fairy tale. This is, I think, the third version Disney's been involved in. Of course, they did the 1950 Cinderella, the animated classic. They did a TV movie in 1997 adapting the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical, starring Brandy and Whitney Houston, and this is the big live-action remake of the animated film, directed by Kenneth Branagh, starring Lily James as Cinderella, Richard Madden as the Prince, Cate Blanchett as Lady Tremaine, and Helena Bonham Carter as the Fairy Godmother. This was an interesting release because this was one of the early live-action remakes before Disney popularized and milk that to the cash cow that it is today. And I did not want to see this movie originally. When the film first came out, I was against the idea of Disney doing these live action remakes, and I saw there were a lot more that they were releasing after the success of movies like Alice in Wonderland and Maleficent. And I hated the Maleficent movie, and I still hate the movie to this day. And I hated that movie so much, I did not go see Cinderella in theaters because I thought, oh, this is a bad trend. It's going to lead to bad things. And yeah, I still think it is a bad trend. And there have been some bad remakes out there even as of this video, 2024. But, at the time, I just based it on just one movie. And I wasn't open to the idea that there could be some good live action remakes out there. And so I missed this one in theaters. I didn't watch this film until I think around the time it came out on DVD, Blu-ray. I remember renting the film, and I watched this film, and boy was I surprised at how much I really got into this movie. And one of my biggest hot takes comes from Cinderella. Because, I like the animated Cinderella fine. It's not a horrible movie. I respect it as a classic. There's a lot of good elements in there. But I've never really gone back on Cinderella like some of the other classic Disney films. Story-wise, it doesn't resonate with me compared to some of the other Disney animated films, especially compared to some of the other Disney princess films. Like Beauty and the Beast is like my all-time favorite. I think I resonate with Belle so much, the character. I think she's a fantastic character with a lot of great traits that anybody can latch onto. And Cinderella, yeah, she's kind, she's selfless, but like some aspects of her in the animated film, like, why doesn't she leave the house at any time? Like, that was a weird point. And the romance was kind of half cooked in the original film. So, like, I like the animated film, but it's just never been one of my favorites. This is what I love about this remake. It does everything in its power to respect the animated film. Like, it's obviously your tried and true Cinderella story. It has what you want in the Cinderella story. You have Cinderella, who starts off very kind, sweet girl. Then after her parents died, she gets abused by her stepmother and her stepsisters, and they force her into servant labor. And then she comes across the fairy godmother. She gets the magic dress. The pumpkin turns into a big coach, and she's able to go to the ball, and she has her big dance with the prince. And then she loses her glass slipper on the way, and you get the big happily ever after there. So you pretty much get the hallmark of that story. And there's a lot of elements from the 1950 film that are in this film. But what I love about this movie is it takes what made the original film good. One, it does its own spin on it. And two, aspects I didn't care for as much in the 1950 film, they went above and beyond measure to, in my opinion, improve upon the story that the original film did. For example, I mentioned, Cinderella. Like, why doesn't she leave? That's a frustration I have in the animated film. Well, she mentions in this movie she had an obligation to fulfill because of something she felt she had to do with her late parents, because they were big on the house, and she wants to take care of her house to fulfill this obligation to her parents. See, that makes perfect sense to me. Instead of, she's just there when she could leave at any time in the animated film. Another thing that I love is the romance is so much better in this movie. One, you have Cinderella meets the prince, not knowing he's the prince. They have this chance encounter before the ball. So the chemistry's already there, but she doesn't know he's the prince. And so I think because you have more scenes with these characters together, I think the romance it builds a lot better. It flows a lot better. I like the chemistry between actors, Lily James and Richard Madden. They do a good job playing these characters. And I just think sonically this works together, seeing more scenes with these characters getting to know one another and trying to figure out, what makes these characters so special. I think what I also appreciate, we have a scene in this version where the prince actually at the end comes and sees Cinderella in rags, because he thought she was a princess the whole time, but he gets to see what she actually is, and he still accepts her for who she is, leading into the happily ever after. So I like that addition to the movie as well. The acting in here is fantastic all across the board. Lily James, excellent as Cinderella. I think she embodies the virtues of the character so well. This was my introduction to Lily James, an actress, and I'm not gonna lie, I did develop a crush on Lily James when I first watched this movie, and I think she's still a fantastic actress. I do enjoy seeing her on screen in the various movies I've seen her in, and it all started with Cinderella. I liked Richard Madden as the prince. I like that he has more of a character in this movie. Cate Blanchett, excellent as the stepmother. Like, yeah, she's still a very villainous character, cruel human being, but I like that the movie does enough to flesh out, why she is this way without coming off as like super sympathetic like some of these other recent live action Disney movies have dropped the ball on. This one, it's like, oh, she's only doing this so she can continue to be wealthy. She's a gold digger pretty much. And yeah, just the cold calculations on Cate Blanchett. I mean, she's very over the top in it, but she is so despicable at the same time, and Cate Blanchett relishes in this role so well. I also got to highlight Helena Bonham Carter as the fairy godmother. I thought she was delightful. She's very quirky, maybe a little too quirky for a character like the fairy godmother, but she plays her strengths as an actress, and I enjoyed her take on the character all the same. I think another performance I gotta mention is Derek Jacobi, who plays the king. Man, I like how they do the relationship with the prince and the king. One of the things that annoy me in the 1950s Cinderella is the prince wanted nothing to do with a ball in the animated film. It was just a setup by the king for selfish motivations, because he wants his grandchildren before he dies, and not that the prince cared to fall in love, but the king, he just wants grandchildren. He's trying to rush these things. Here it's like, yeah, he kind of forces his son to have a ball, but the prince makes the provision that, all the eligible women can go be part of this ball, not just the wealthy. And I like that there's more of a collaboration between the king and the princess version, and even though the king has his own methods on who he thinks the prince should fall in love with, before this one mentions that he is literally dying, and before he does die on his deathbed, he's like, at the end he sees that the prince and Cinderella have a thing going. He's like, okay, you can fall in love with this mystery girl. I love you, I trust you, I respect you, you're your own man. And I'm like, okay, there's a little bit more of a better development with these two characters that I do appreciate. So, yeah, there's a lot of things this movie does very well. Kenneth Branagh, great job directing this movie. The fact that he previously did Shakespeare adaptations, he brings that flair into this. The costume design's excellent. The production design is very spellbinding. There's a majestic score in here. So this movie is top-notch on a production level. This is, in my opinion, the best live-action Disney remake, because it shows that you can make a quality update on a story without insulting what the previous film did. This one did a good job at honoring what the animated film did and building upon it to make, in my opinion, a better movie. Things that worked well in the animated film that maybe would not work in live action, I think they excelled at that. The animated film had talking mice. Yeah, the mice are in this film, but they don't talk. The movie doesn't really need that. And it's cool that the mice are still in there. It's kind of like an Easter egg, but I'm glad they didn't talk in this film, because that would have been very off-putting. This is an excellent film. It's my favorite of the live-action Disney remakes. I think I emotionally got more into Cinderella's journey with some of the extra additions that this movie brought on. I think I resonated with Cinderella as a character. When the film first came out, I felt like I was in a similar position as Cinderella work-wise, because there was some abuse going on at the job I worked at the time. So I'm like, okay, this movie came out at the right place at the right time. And even as corny as the message sounds, have courage and be kind, it's a simple truth that, it's biblical too, but it's a simple truth that resonates with just about anybody. And I think it's a good, kind-hearted virtue that, I feel like if you're striving to do good in this world, that's some good words you could live by. Have courage and be kind. I think this is a fantastic movie. My favorite live-action Disney remake. I'm giving this film a 5 out of 5 stars. this is the one remake that I feel like Disney did super right. And in my opinion, it's the rare Disney remake that improves upon its animated film. I know that's a hot take, but that's my hot take, and I'm sticking by it. Though I respect anyone who loves the animated film as well. It's a certified classic. Thank you, Josh, for having me on your channel to talk about Cinderella. I know this took a while for me to film this video, but I finally talking about this movie. Thank you for having me on the channel. I'm sure he'll leave links in the description below. I also have a YouTube channel. I used to do movie reviews all the time. I do more music stuff now, but I still occasionally talk about movies. I do Discussing DreamWorks, Celebrating Disney over on my channel, so feel free to come over to my channel, like and subscribe if you haven't already. Josh, I won't hog up too much of your time. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this live-action Disney remake, so back to your thoughts on Cinderella.
So, when it comes to Cinderella 2015, I remember when this first was coming out, I saw the teaser trailer on the Austin Alley DVD, and it had nothing more but just the image of the glass slipper glowing, and then it said the release date 2015 in March. And when I first saw this, I didn't see this in the theater, of course, but when I first saw this eventually, I wasn't really that big on it. I thought there were some things that they really tried too hard to do, and the stuff I appreciated, I found it was uninteresting, of course. But it was only the first time I watched it, and I've not rewatched the movie since then. So I decided to rewatch this back in 2022, of course. And this is on a list of a top 10 list I plan to do of the movies that I initially didn't like, but I've grown to appreciate. This is one of those. And so when I rewatched this for the rewatch in 2022, and this movie was still fresh in my head last year, because I had plans to review it last year, but things didn't go out so well, so I moved it to this year. Rewatching this movie more times over the years, this movie has grown on me a lot. I've gone from being okay on this to actually really loving this. And I think this is one of the better live-action Disney remakes. Starting off with the positives in terms of what we could go with for here, I will say the direction of this movie is very good. The direction of this movie is very whimsical, is very Shakespearean, is very lovable, and you can tell that he and the screenwriter Chris White, who is also a director of things like The Golden Compass and The Twilight Saga of the Moon, that you can tell that they have a love for this property, and then he knows exactly what he is in terms of, he knows what he's doing, and he's done a lot of great things as a director. He's done some good directorial work. He's a big Shakespearean fan, but he's also a very good director. He's also a very good actor as well. But the directing-wise, he's done like Henry V and Much Ado About Nothing and the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which I think is alright. And he also did Hamlet and the first Thor movie, which is underrated. The Hercule Poirot movies in Belfast. He has a pretty great directing track record for the most part. Aside from Artemis Fowl, that was not his best. I will say his direction in terms of what he's going for is really solid here. He does get some great looking shots. He does put you in the world of Cinderella, and the fact that he and his screenwriter actually wanted to go in depth and give the character of Cinderella a backstory, but as well as flesh upon a couple of other things. And the fact that this movie, it is a remake that acknowledges the original without having to rehash it beat for beat. And the fact that they're able to take stuff that made the original story good and expand it is relatable and more heartfelt. One of the things I definitely appreciate is that you see the slow and psychological damage of Cinderella's abuse, but how she refuses not to give up and be kind and be courageous. that's definitely something I definitely really admire and appreciate. The fact that he gives deeper layers of Lady Tremaine is actually really good there. Tweaking some things in the story to make it fit into a live action story, developing Cinderella as a character, her relationship with the prince, who has a name, which I like the fact that they gave him a name, because in the original he didn't have a name. In the terms of kids, they downgrade the mice to Easter eggs and not having them, giving them much dialogue. So that is one of the things that even if you're a purist of the original film, you may not really like all that much in terms of it, but I appreciate it because the fact it's trying to do something a little different, it's trying to do something a little more out there. Just the fact that it does have the sheer passion and magic in the direction. So he and Walt Disney at the time, they acknowledged the original film and as classic and the original story, and they wanted to do the best they can to make it work for a newer audience. And in the wrong hands, it could have been a disaster, it could have been soulless, it could have been a cash grab. But the fact that it's not really much of a cash grab, and they actually have the balls to make it something interesting, just shows that when Disney puts effort into some of these remakes and some of these live action stuff and their animation stuff, they can be very competent. It's just they do have some issues of the modern day, which I hope they do get that in check pretty soon with Bob Iger back in the seat. This is an hour and 46 minutes. It's not too long. It doesn't drag ass like some of these other Disney remakes, even though some of them I do like. That is a criticism I have, that some of them does drag. But it gets you straight in, gets you straight out, and it feels like a completed film. It doesn't feel like this was studio interfered and then later we're going to get an extended cut. This is a completely, fully made film. The $90 million budget is on screen, from the settings to the costumes to the production design to the era of this movie that it takes place, and it does have that 19th century period film made in the 40s or 50s. They do take some major departures with the fairy godmother's costume, but I definitely like the way they did that. The ball gown, it still looks the same, the wedding dress still looks the same, the glass slippers still looks the same. A lot of the costumes still looks like the same by Sandy Powell, and the production design does look great. I also definitely like the cinematography in this. Of course, it's shot on location, it's not a bunch of CGI and blue screen. There's a few moments of CGI, but that's mainly held back from the practicality and the locations and the setting, because they did film this in stuff like studios in Germany and such. And the cinematography by Harris Zambarcalos is really good. I like the cinematography. There's some great sweeping shots, like with Cinderella's riding on the horse, and then her and Cate, and then the infamous dance. It's creating scenes from the original, but they also put enough in there to make it its own. So that way it's not an unnecessary remake, as I once thought this was. Editing by Martin Walsh. Aside from a few slow moments, I think the editing is really strong. I think it's very competently handled. I do like the editing. Gets you straight in and gets you straight out, as what a movie should do. Score, of course, by Patrick Doyle is really good as well. They do have some musical moments from the original film with the classic song If You Dream, which is sung by Lil James in this. I actually really like that. You also have Patrick Doyle. A dream is a wish your heart makes. I like they kept that in. And you have Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, which is kept back into it in this. But the score is also very well done. This is the third collaboration with them at the time between Hamlet and Thor: The Dark World. And Patrick Doyle has done music before, especially with Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. And also he did music for Disney with the movie Brave, which I think Disney Pixar's Brave deserves more recognition than it gets. It kind of gets overlooked, especially when you have a Scottish Princess Merida.
Kick-ass.
Look at you go!
acting, of course, is strong all the way around. Let's start off with the main title character herself, Lily James, which this was my first movie I ever saw her in. And since then, she's done a lot of great acting work. And I think she's a fantastic actress. She's underrated. She does have that screen presence. She has the charm and likability. I remember when this came out, she did say they were making her more stronger, but they still kept elements of what she is in the original film. But I do get what Lily is saying a little bit, but they still feel like it's the same character. And also, this is a little fun fact for some of you. Her grandmother is Helen Horton, who did the voice of the mother in the computer in Nostromo in the original Alien. So those of you Alien fans, does some bit of a tribute there. Her acting wise, she's gone on to other things since this, like Baby Driver and Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and Darkest Hour and even stuff like Littlewoods. Lily James, great underrated actress. She definitely should be doing a lot more movies, but whenever she does, she's great. She looks great here. Her performance was great. I like her singing, which this is not a musical, and she does. Hearing her singing "Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again," she has a beautiful singing voice. But when she does have to wear the infamous dress, she's stunning. She's gorgeous, beautiful, and she's very appealing, very easy on the eyes for a talent like Lily James.
Damn!
And I'm not out of order. You're out of order. The whole freaking system is out of order.
Victory is mine!
Into the other actors, you have Cate Blanchett as Lady Tremaine. I think she's fantastic as the bitter, jealous stepmother who resents her stepdaughter for her unbreakable spirit and kindness. And she does everything she can to try and bring her down. But even with her trying to bring Cinderella down, it doesn't work because she is just that kind-hearted, and Lady Tremaine doesn't enjoy it. And she's not as beautiful, as kind, or as good as Cinderella. She gets very wicked when the jealousy, the pressure, and the jealousy grows. And Cate Blanchett just has fun doing it. And Cate Blanchett is also still very attractive too. Even in The Lord of the Rings and other movies, she's always been a beautiful woman on the eyes. But this is one of the movies where she looks the most beautiful. Richard Madden is Prince Kit. Him and Nunza Azani, who are both in Game of Thrones, but Richard Madden is Prince Kit. I like him. He's humble, he's noble, he's soon to be king, despite his duties to marry the princess for the good of his kingdom. And he's someone who has a sense of humor, and he is aware of his own privileges and his compassion for everyone around him. But I like that fact he has feelings for Cinderella. Richard Madden, he's a good Scottish actor when you give him something good to work with, like Game of Thrones or even this movie. Eternals is not his fault, it's just the way the script was written. We don't get as much to know about him. So, he did fine there, but here, this is one of his better performances. Nunza Azani as the captain. He's loyal, he's sarcastic, but he's rooting for Kit to do what he got to do to find love. And I like him as a character. You love him as a character. Stellan Skarsgård as the Grand Duke, a different transition compared to the original animated film, where he was pretty much different there. Here he is more on the levels of extreme pragmatic and tries to run the show and doesn't approve of the silly idea that anyone should marry the lover. I like that about him, and Stellan Skarsgård is such a good actor that he makes the role very good on his own. think Derek Jacobi's The King is good. Sophie McSherry and Holiday Granger both does a good job in here. And Gisela and Anastasia, they are shot the very vain and vile daughters, and they do a good job in the roles too. So everyone in the cast does a very good job, especially Helena Bonham Carter. And she's very ditzy, but she's yet caring. And Helena Bonham Carter, she has fun with the role. She's not in this movie a lot, but I think she does a really strong job in terms of what she could play with. And she's very fun, and she likes, and she's likable in this. So I definitely enjoyed her. As far as the issues of this movie, I mainly have just a few issues when it comes to this movie. I do feel like, of course, the slow pace, and for a little bit, a few slow moments in the start does take it a little boring. So those are moments where the first few minutes in the slow, it really does kind of just start to find its footing. I cannot stand Lady Tremaine or her two daughters in this movie. I know they're written this way, so you definitely do get a good job with that. But I think they both just really are just so unlikable. So that's the way the characters are written, and the actors do a good job. It's just those two and Lady Tremaine definitely are very unlikable. And there are some things they do here that's not going to work for a purist of Cinderella. So you have to know that this is a different take on the Disney classic while also honoring the original classic. So the mice being taken out isn't going to work for people, which is the only thing I think is going to mess with. Overall, I will say this is one of the better live action remakes, and I definitely really enjoyed it. I have fun with this movie. I'm very happy that I came around on this movie. I think this movie is fun. It's very entertaining. The cinematography is nice. It's very visually appealing. I like Lily James' performance. Kenneth Branagh's direction is very respectful to the original classic while going in its own route. And it's just one of those Disney remakes that does honor itself in terms of what you can do. So I definitely really admire this for not being a shot-for-shot remake, but also being its own. It's a remake of a classic, but also being its own thing. So I definitely give a lot of immense credit for that. So in that, I give this movie an Epictastic. I'm very happy I come around to it. The pure Disney magic, pure Disney fun, and it's just a really solid film. And one of the better remakes you will see. And with that, that's my review of the 2015 Cinderella. I want to thank Jacob for coming on. Definitely check out his channel for celebrating Disney, the hot takes and such. He doesn't do a lot of movie reviews nowadays because of school and life, and the film criticism side of things has gotten a little bad. But I would still recommend checking him out because he has done reviews of movies in the past and such. So definitely go check him out. Thank you for coming along and reviewing this with me. Well, that's going to do it for the video that you just watched. If you want to see more, my channel icon is up here. If you want to see more content from me, all my social medias are right here in this end card. I will also leave a playlist and a video here for you to see what the channel is about. As always, acknowledge me, stay Epictastic, join the Epictasticness, and you guys keep it cool.